Why are you listening to me? I don't care what you do once this thing's over with. You can lay down and die and rot in the street.
At 66, Dan Blocker's son finally confesses what we all suspected. I thought I knew this man. Big voice, big presence, big heart. But the truth? It's quieter than that. And somehow more powerful. And what his son revealed later? It didn't shock me. It confirmed something I think people felt all along. Let me start with a moment that doesn't get talked about enough. Not a scene from Bonanza, not a line from Hoss Cartwright. A real decision. There was a hotel that wouldn't allow black cast members inside. And Dan Blocker refused to stay there. No speech, no publicity. Just, if they're not welcome, I'm not staying either. That's it. And for me, that says more than any role ever could. Because growing up, most people saw him as Hoss, gentle, loyal, kind, almost too good to be real. But here's what surprised me. He actually lived like that. Not perfectly, but consistently. And his story doesn't start in Hollywood. It starts in Texas, born big, literally, around 14 pounds at birth. And he kept growing into this towering figure that people couldn't ignore. But the interesting part? People who knew him didn't talk about his size first. They talked about his nature. Calm, grounded, kind. That carried through everything, even war. Because this part often gets overlooked. He wasn't just an actor playing strength. He experienced real danger serving in the United States Army during the Korean War. He was injured, earned a Purple Heart. But what stayed with him wasn't pride in combat. It was a deep discomfort with violence. That stuck. And I think it shaped the kind of man he became after. And when he came back, he didn't chase fame like most people would. But Hollywood noticed him anyway. His size got attention, but it was his presence that made people stay. And then came Bonanza, Hoss Cartwright. And this is where things blur a little. Because that character, it wasn't far from who he actually was. Warm, honest, loyal. And I think audiences felt that. You can't fake that kind of energy for that long. But here's something I didn't expect. He didn't love fame. Not really. In fact, he tried to get away from it. Moved his family to Switzerland for a while. Not for a role, not for money, for peace, for privacy, for something normal. That says a lot, because most people in his position lean into the spotlight. He leaned away from it. But even with all that strength, he was still human. He struggled with his weight. His appetite was kind of legendary among friends. And over time, it started affecting his health in ways people didn't fully see. And then came that moment that still feels sudden. A routine surgery. Something that shouldn't have been dangerous. But it was. A complication. A pulmonary embolism. And just like that, Dan Blocker was gone at 43. It feels unfinished, like there was more to his story. And honestly, there probably was. But here's where everything comes together. Years later, his son, Dirk Blocker, started opening up more. Not about the fame, not about the show, about the man. And what he shared wasn't dramatic, it was simple. That his father wasn't pretending. That kindness people saw on screen, that was real. That integrity, real. That quiet strength, also real. And I think that's why his son chose a different path, less spotlight, less pressure. Almost like he saw what fame did and decided he didn't need it the same way. And that might be the most honest part of this whole story. Because in the end, this isn't about a TV legend. It's about a man who could have been consumed by fame, but chose something else, something quieter, something better, and somehow, that's what made him unforgettable.